So the Iowa Nitrogen Initiative is a public-private partnership between Iowa's farmers and the university to learn, understand, and better manage nitrogen fertilizer in our state. When we originally released the nutrient reduction strategy in 2013, the university only suggested 4 nitrogen fertilizer rates for the whole state of Iowa. Now that was just an averaged across a lot of variability, different management systems, different planting dates, different crop varieties, different weather years even. The Iowa Nitrogen Initiative aims to collect an enormous amount of data using the latest advances in precision agriculture technology to accumulate the amount of data we need to help farmers make better decisions for nitrogen management that are field and operation specific.
What's great about these on-farm trials that we're conducting is that we're working directly with the farmer on the ground that they farm. And so when farmers work with us to conduct these trials, we're typically doing 5 rates, 5 different replicates, and they're applied using a prescription that they plug into their tractor, and the applicator bar responds to the location-specific rates. So the farmer doesn't have to do a lot, but the information that they're getting out of it about their operation is very important. So at the end of the year, they can see which of those rates was the optimum rate. And then in addition to that, we start looking at things like management factors. We look at location, we look at soil type, we look at tillage and residue and cover crops. And so we could begin to understand the environment that created that particular optimum nitrogen rate. And then we take that information and we plug it into a cropping systems model to ground truth the hundreds of simulations that that model is running, so we can better understand and predict the optimum nitrogen rates, not only for that farmer, but for all farmers across the state of Iowa.
One of the first things we needed to do is look at the practices that were already being implemented across the landscape and estimate, well, how well do they do for nutrient reduction? We looked in depth at all of the science that address some of those issues and came up with sort of percent reductions on how much each of these practices reduced. So one of the things that we did is we looked at some of the research gaps and we said, well, where can we improve our research and look to get that to implementation practices on the landscape. One example of that was an edge of field practice called a saturated buffer. We know that artificial subsurface drainage is important for agricultural production, but we know it also has some challenges with some trade-offs, and one of those is nitrate nitrogen that moves through that soil into that tile drain and moves into the stream. Once that nitrate gets into that soil next to the stream, a lot of that nitrate is removed. The challenge we had is that that tile drain would bypass those soils next to the stream, and so we looked into developing technology where we would take that tile and we would put a control structure in there, and we would reroute some of that tile drainage water that contained the nitrate into those riparian soils and take advantage of that natural process of nitrate removal. It was found to be a really effective practice, so that was an example of where we took research and then tried to implement it on the landscape.
Nutrient management affects our profitability and also, of course, the environmental performance of our cropping systems. For the long-term sustainability of Iowa's agricultural systems, we need to better manage nutrients for both our profitability and our environmental quality in the state.
Better nutrient management is a win-win for all Iowans, whether you're working on the farm or you live in the city or you just enjoy living in the country or recreating or drinking Iowa's water or using it in any way. We are all users of Iowa's water. And when we can use better nutrient management practice, reduce the amount of nutrients that are making their way into the environment, it's a win for our health, it's a win for our profitability, and it's a win for our economy.